Good morning and welcome to our latest Innerva interview series, where I have the pleasure of being joined this morning by Stuart Stokes, founder and MD at Refer All. With the leisure industry seeking to strengthen its partnerships with the health sector and support the NHS, I'm delighted to be joined by Stuart. He's going to talk to us all about how Refer All have been doing this for a long time now. It's not new to them. Stuart, tell us a little bit about the idea behind Refer All and its purpose, and a little bit, I suppose, about you and your previous life and how this has all evolved.
Great, thanks, Laura. It all kind of happened actually as a bit of an accident. We were running services as a public health consultancy for the southeast down here. We were running things like tier 2 weight management services, exercise referral schemes, community falls prevention services. And prior to that, we were also working, and my experiences from regional, local health delivery, public health delivery, and always had this aim to try and simplify data collection. And what happened was we kind of fell into Refer All. The first aim of it initially was to get a good exchange of data from healthcare professionals to the scheme to reduce inappropriate referrals. So no more was it, can you see this bloke, he's really nice, he walks 2 times a day, to getting some meaningful data from the healthcare professionals so that people could pick those people up and work with them. And we set about that journey, and then we provided a portal for healthcare professionals to log in and see the progress of their referrals. And then scheme administrators, the people running the schemes, could then log in and pick up referrals. And that's really how it all kind of started. And then quickly it snowballed from there, because actually what we realized was it was the guys running the services, the scheme providers, the scheme administrators, who could do a lot more once they'd picked up the referral. So what we did is we kind of then went into a bigger CRM type of system, a task-based system, and that is really where Refer All has evolved over the time. But it is born about really my passion to not only collect data and to evidence what we're doing. I set up I didn't know I was doing it, my first exercise referral scheme in 1992. So some 30-something years ago. I don't know if that makes me a grand veteran or a master. I'm not sure what that is, but and ever since then, there's always been a challenge for schemes and services to collect data. And that hasn't really changed a great deal over 30 years, So it was like, how could we simplify that? And that's really how Refer All came about, was could we simplify data collection and reporting?
It's interesting, obviously, you've mentioned 1992 there, and you didn't realise it at the time, and you started to set up exercise referral scheme effectively. And as we know, it has been going for many years, definitely, in the UK and further afield. Nowadays, it's usually a commissioned services. And I was just wondering, what types of information or data do commissioners look for? And I suppose the other side of that is, what kind of data do operators also want to see? And has that changed over the years, or has it just become a little bit more kind of clear and consistent across schemes across the country, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And it has changed over the years. I know initially when we first started and when we were running services, it was all about, does a service change someone's blood pressure, or does it reduce medication? And those kind of markers. And over a 3-month project, it's very difficult to evidence those kind of outcomes at that point. And there was a lot of bad press about that, actually. And I think the bad press came from actually the outcomes were wrong. They set the wrong outcomes to start off with. And I think there's been a massive movement there. PH54, the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence guidance around exercise referral schemes in particular, has helped shape some of the data that should be collected. That said, there is still not a consistent data set as you might think, especially around exercise referral. There's still a lot of apples and pears out there. And what we do at Refer All is we try and focus on key sets of data initially. So, for example, for an exercise referral scheme, we try and encourage our customers to collect data around physical activity levels. Makes sense. We want to show a change in physical activity levels. We want some other measure around well-being. So again, either general well-being or mental well-being. So we encourage the collection of that data. Behavior modification as well, because actually that has a big impact longer term. So we want to know if we're making a change in people's behavior. And one that is quite often overlooked is goal setting and goal evaluation. So we want to know that participants themselves are feeling that they've achieved what they set out to do, as opposed to what the scheme is trying to demonstrate, which is, let's say, for example, a 5% reduction in body mass. So it's trying to work with something that the commissioners need, but also making it locally specific. So we tend to talk here at referral as we say, nationally relevant, locally specific. So we need to make sure that the data, core data that's collected, has a harmonization with what nationally we need to collect, but then we need to allow for local specificity. Oh, that's a hard word to say, isn't it? But that's the word that we need. That sometimes leads to apple and pears, but we tend to see now that core set of data. So it has changed over the years. It is becoming more standard, but having a framework behind the organisation and the scheme, such as a software framework, then that helps as well, because it helps to standardise the data collected.
Yeah, yeah. And the system itself has developed, I suppose, as commissioners and operators' needs has evolved, in terms of, the ability for people to, I suppose, personalize what they want locally. And also, as you said, it's evolved into a CRM system. So everything is in one place, text notifications, for instance, going out to people about appointment reminders and that type of thing, and then giving them the ability to manage it on the other side as a participant. Have operators found that that's helped increase engagement from rates? Have you seen them increase over the years as the system has evolved to provide an even better platform effectively?
Yeah, hugely. And what we also see around data actually now is we're seeing operators and providers coming back to us saying, actually, we're seeing the value of services, and therefore what we want to do is further demonstrate point A or point B. So they'll come back to us and say, can we start collecting data about point A or point B, which is outside of what they were initially commissioned for. We're also seeing a movement, Laura, which is really key, which is around now some of our customers are no longer commissioned to run these services, yet they see the value and therefore are still running them. And we know that if people move into mainstream memberships in the industry, we know that if they've come through a health-related program, there's a greater chance they will stay for longer in the main membership. So this is really cool stuff that we can see that's happening from that journey there. So I think that's one of the key points that we're seeing, that our customers are coming back to us and saying, what can we do? Can we do more with the data that we're collecting? Now, when it comes to efficiencies, we see that the dreaded DNA rate is twofold. Sometimes the DNA rate is the participant saying, actually, I hadn't got the guts to say, or I didn't want to say that I didn't want to take up this program, so therefore I'm just going to DNA my appointments and not turn up. And that is quite challenging. So again, introducing things like text reminders, text confirmation, that has massively reduced DNA rates, and that is huge. When it comes to the consultation themselves, quite often the consultations were an hour long. 45 minutes of that was filling out forms to collect the data required by the scheme, 15 minutes to encourage the person to take out a more active lifestyle. And I thought, well, that's not quite right, really. Actually, wouldn't it be better if we could spend half an hour motivating someone to be more active, but collect the data up front? So yeah, schemes and services are able to collect the data by either texting out a link to a questionnaire or a email a questionnaire, and collect that data prior to the appointment. So a meaningful conversation can be had around the data as opposed to just collecting the data. And that has shown some of our customers have reduced their appointment times from 1 hour to 30 minutes. And people said to me, Stu, what's the relevance of that? And it means, well, potentially you could double your capacity to get people started.
Does it also mean that potentially that you develop a relationship earlier with that individual who comes into the room because they know you've taken an interest in them and that you know a little bit about them, and it's easier, I suppose, to spark up that initial conversation, which, as you said, can be quite difficult because these people have a lot of barriers to overcome oftentimes when first accessing the scheme.
Yeah, that's right. And it's trying to understand what some of those barriers may be. And it also acts as a really good acid test, doesn't it? That if someone doesn't complete the paperwork beforehand, now it could be that technologically they're unable to do so, but we're seeing that less and less often now. But if someone doesn't complete the data prior to the appointment, there's an interesting analysis there of whether that happens, what's the length of duration? with those people coming through that didn't complete the data beforehand versus those that did. So there's offshoots of all sorts of stuff that our customers can glean from that to say, well, actually, we know that people retain longer if they are more invested in the program up front by completing the data. So yeah, absolutely.
And I suppose one final thing from me, Stuart, is, over the years, I've certainly seen Referral has started to integrate more and more with other leisure management systems, which is fantastic, because it means that operators aren't having to work with 2-3 systems to get the data. It all fits together. Obviously, the NHS is a different kettle of fish, and I've seen them change systems over the years a number of times, but they've been always somewhat closed to integrations with external companies. And I was just wondering, do you think that's starting to shift in their mindset, or is there something in the pipeline with Referral in terms of trying to push this type of integration with health organizations? Because everyone looks at the NHS and goes, it's one body. It's not. They're different organizations, and it's probably something you're battling with. But any insight into where that's moving, or where it's coming from a health perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. It is moving, and it's moving quite quickly, actually. What's interesting is it's less closed, for sure. And actually, maybe closed isn't the right word, because I think there was always an openness if you could conform to A, B, or C. And I think that was some of the challenges there. Now, quite often, if you take what's our base currently at just over 320 schemes, quite often those scheme requirements are quite different. If you're running a community force prevention service or a tier 2 weight management service, the data required is different. Yeah, there's not apples and apples at that point. Someone needs to know about force history as opposed to, the weight of the individual. So that led to a lot of challenges on what we could extract and how we could extract it from the clinical systems. So we are on a project currently at the moment. It has a code name. I won't share it with you, but it has a code name. And we're looking to use APIs. This is the way we can integrate with other systems that are not proprietary as such to the clinical systems, but they're delivered via the NHS. And using those APIs, we're hoping to extract data from clinical systems that can meet the needs, or the broader needs, of all of our customers. So whether you're running a community force prevention service, or whether you're running just a smoking cessation program, or anything in between that, we can pick up the relevant data that's applicable to that program without anyone requiring to do anything in the middle as well. And the same methodology would apply to those people that are referring themselves to programs. Just stick in an NHS number, we'll do the rest. Now, that project is quite exciting. It's a big project for us here at Referral, because there's a lot of hoops to jump through. And not only that, there's a lot of understanding on how we can match all of that data up to the wide, diverse needs of our clients. But we are hoping to have that project delivered early next year. And exciting. That's going to be really cool, really cool.
Really exciting, really exciting. I mean, one thing you touched on there as well that I'd forgotten to mention is the fact that Referral is, people can now self-refer. And I think schemes around the country, there's a lot more of that, because people, if they can self-refer, can do it a lot quicker than obviously going through their health practitioner due to current waiting times, etc. And I suppose there's buy-in straight away, because they're taking the lead on the referral. So yeah, there's some really exciting stuff with Referral over the years. Stuart, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And one final thing is, if people want more information on Referral, can they email? Do they go to the website? How can they get in touch?
Yeah, easiest way, either look us up on LinkedIn or go to the website, which is refer-all.net, or hook me up on either X. I've got to get that name right now. This is a tricky one, isn't it? X, or LinkedIn, or send me an email to Stuart, that's UART, at refer-all.net.
Brilliant. Stuart, thank you so much for your time, and have a lovely day. Cheers.
You too. Cheers, Laura.